Mob Psycho is the kind of anime that takes everything you thought you knew about psychic powers, wraps it in the awkwardness of a middle school life, and then shakes it up like a soda can until it explodes in your face with humor, heart, and a whole lot of psychic energy. Imagine if the kid sitting quietly in the back of your class with a haircut that looked like his mom did it was secretly the most powerful Esper in the world. That's Shigeo Mob Kageyama for you. A boy who's so average, it's extraordinary. Mob is your typical 8th grader, soft-spoken, socially awkward, and about as intimidating as a marshmallow. But beneath that unassuming exterior lies a psychic powerhouse who could level a city with a sneeze. The catch? Mob just wants to live a normal life. He's not interested in being the next psychic superstar or battling evil spirits. He just wants to improve himself and maybe get a little better at talking to his crush, Tsubame. You know, regular teenage stuff, except with the added pressure that if he ever lets his emotions get out of control, things could go boom. And I mean literally go boom. The series follows Mob as he navigates the ups and downs of middle school life, dealing with bullies, trying to make friends, joining a body improvement club, because what else would you do when you are already a psychic god, and occasionally saving the world from rogue psychics and evil spirits. The catch is that every time Mob's emotions hit 100%, he reaches a breaking point and all hell breaks loose. It's like having an emotional barometer attached to a nuclear bomb. You really hope he doesn't get too excited or angry or sad or anything really. When your typical office worker dies, gets reincarnated in a fantasy world, and instead of coming back as a powerful wizard or a dragon, he gets turned into a slime. Yes, you heard it right. It's slime. You know, those squishy, low-level monsters in RPGs that you usually grind for experience points before moving on the bigger and bigger foes? Well, this slime is about to show you why you should never underestimate the power of being slime. As Rimuru starts munching his way through the local flora and fauna, he quickly becomes one of the most overpowered creatures in this fantasy world, though you wouldn't guess it by looking at him. Imagine a gelatinous blob casually strolling into a dragon's lair, having a chat, and then becoming best friends with said dragon. That's Rimuru for you, making alliances and friends wherever he goes, all while remaining adorably squishy. But Rimuru's real charm lies in his approach to world domination, which for him is less about conquering kingdoms and more about building a community. He starts by befriending a group of goblins who are about as competent as a group of toddlers trying to put together IKEA furniture. But with Rimuru's guidance and the occasional power boost, they go from being hapless village dwellers to a thriving, organized society. Before you know it, Rimuru's little slime empire is attracting all kinds of races: wolves, dwarf, ogres, and even demons. There are elves, humans, all united under his surprisingly charismatic leadership. Take a cooking show, turn it up to 11, and sprinkle it with just enough anime craziness to create a dish that's equal parts delicious and ridiculous. It's a world where food isn't just about taste, it's an experience so intense that it can cause grown adults to scream in ecstasy, float in the air, and more often than not lose their clothes in a flurry of culinary-induced bliss. Yes, you heard that right. This is the only show where eating a perfect bowl of ramen might leave you suddenly needing to cover up. Every episode is a wild ride of intense cooking battles, over-the-top reactions, and enough food porn to make even the most disciplined dieter reconsider their life choices. Soma's dishes are the stuff of legend, mixing bizarre ingredients and techniques in ways that would make Gordon Ramsay's head spin, whether it's transforming common dinner food into into haute cuisine or whipping up a dish that looks more like an art installation than something edible, Soma's kitchen proves knows no bounds. What really sets Food Wars apart are the food gasms, those infamous moments where characters take a bite of something so delicious that they are literally transported to another dimension of pleasure. The animators pull out all the stops, showing people drifting through psychedelic visions, dancing with giant shrimp, or being wrapped in soft, buttery clouds. And then there's the clouds. Oh, the clouds. The moment someone bites into a particularly good dish, their clothes explode off in a burst of flavor-induced euphoria. Food Wars is a deliciously over-the-top anime that combines cooking, comedy, and enough fanservice to fill a 5-course meal. The Promised Neverland starts off like your typical heartwarming anime about adorable orphans living in a peaceful countryside home. The kids at Gracefield House are as cute as buttons, running around in their white uniforms playing tag and waiting for their turn to be adopted into loving families. It's like a Hallmark movie come to life, but then BAM! Plot twist. This is not the feel-good anime you signed up for. In fact, you might want to buckle up because things are about to get dark. Real dark. The story follows Emma, Norman, and Ray, 3 genius kids who quickly realize that their idyllic orphanage is more like a 5-star buffet for demons, and they are the main course. Yep. Turns out all those loving adoptive families are actually hungry monsters waiting for their next dish. And the dish is these children. As soon as the truth comes out, the show goes from "oh, how cute" to "oh no," faster than you can say escape plan. What follows is an intense game of cat and mouse, except the mice are super smart kids and the cat is a giant demon with a craving for human flesh. The stakes couldn't be higher, and every episode will have you on the edge of your seat, clutching your pillow, and probably considering becoming a vegetarian. But it's not all doom and gloom. Well, mostly it is. But there are some lighter moments. The camaraderie between the kids is genuinely heartwarming, and there's something satisfying about watching a group of small children outsmart adults and literal monsters. Plus, the show's ability to mix horror with a tale of friendship and survival makes for a unique and gripping experience. It's like Peter Pan meets The Hunger Games with a dash of Stranger Things thrown in for good measure. This is the anime equivalent of that moment when you realize the story doesn't end when the hero saves the day. No, that's just where the real fun begins. Especially if you are an immortal elf who has outlived all your adventuring buddies and has no idea what to do with your life now that the big bad is toast. The story kicks off right after your grand finale of your typical epic fantasy adventure. The Demon King defeated. The world saved. The hero celebrated. Freerun, the elf mage, who looks like she's barely old enough to rent a car but has actually been around for about 1,000 years? Well, she's kinda there. You see, for Freerun, a few decades of adventuring is just a blip in her long life. While everyone else is reminiscing about the good old days, she's mostly concerned about where she's going to store her ever-growing collection of magical knickknacks. But then, surprise! Before you can say happily ever after, the story takes a turn. Freerun, who's been coasting through life like she's got all the time in the world, because she does, suddenly realizes that, oops, maybe she should have paid more attention to the fleeting humans she's been hanging out with, especially now that they are all starting to, die of old age. Talk about a wake-up call. Freerun's approach to life is hilariously laid back. She's the kind of person who takes her time with everything, literally. Need to learn a new spell? Give her a decade or two. But despite her seemingly aloof nature, Freerun's journey is all about reconnecting with her emotion and understanding what it means to live in a world where everyone else has an expiration date. It's like an immortal elf version of eat, pray, love, but with more goblins and less yoga. Dr. Stone is the ultimate what-if scenario. What if the entire world got turned into stone and the only guy who could save humanity was a science nerd with hair that defies gravity? Welcome to a show where chemistry, physics, and questionable hairstyles collide in the most hilariously educational way possible. Our main guy, Senku Ishigami, is the kind of genius who probably made your high school chemistry teacher cry out of jealousy. He wakes up after 3,700 years of being petrified, and instead of freaking out about, the apocalypse, he immediately starts plotting how to reboot civilization from scratch. He's literally building everything from scratch, from soap to cell phones, in a Stone Age world where the advanced tool is a pointy stick. Then there's Taijuki, Senku's best friend and the human equivalent of a battering ram. Taiju's got the brawn to match Senku's brain, and a heart so pure it could probably power a small village if Senku could harness it. His main contribution to the cause? Yelling "Senku!" at the top of his lungs while smashing through rocks or trees. Of course, no good adventure is complete without a rival, and that's where Tsukasa, the self-proclaimed strongest high school primate, comes in. He's got the hair of a shampoo commercial star and the fist of a Marvel superhero, but his idea of a perfect world is a little selective. Let's just say he's not exactly on board with Senku's plan to bring everyone back. It's like the ultimate debate team showdown. Science versus brute strength, with the fate of humanity on the line. The real star of Dr. Stone, though, is the science itself. Every episode is packed with so many scientific facts and experiments that you will feel like you are back in school. But without the boring parts. It's like the coolest science class you never had, where instead of tests you get to see Senku build everything from batteries to bread ovens, all while cracking jokes and making you feel like you could totally survive the apocalypse. If only you had Senku's IQ. Izuku Deku Midoriya starts out as the poster child for underdogs everywhere, born without a superpower in a world where nearly everyone has one. Deku's life goal is to become the greatest hero ever. This is like deciding you are going to be an astronaut despite a severe fear of heights and an allergy to space. But Deku's got something stronger than quirk: sheer, unrelenting optimism and enough determination to make a motivational poster cry. Enter All Might, the #1 hero and human embodiment of steroid commercial. With a smile so bright it could power Tokyo, All Might's the guy everyone looks up to, literally and figuratively. He's got muscles on top of muscles and more muscles, and with a personality of a Saturday morning cartoon superhero, which is probably why he's the perfect mentor for Deku. Oh, and did I mention his quirk is literally called One for All? Because if you are going to have a superpower, you might as well make it sound as epic as possible. The students at UA are as varied as a bag of jelly beans. Some are sweet, some are spicy, and some are downright weird. Bakugo is the resident hothead with a temper that matches his explosive quirk. He's basically what would happen if you gave a firecracker legs and a bad attitude. Then there's Todoroki, who's got daddy issues so severe they come with their own frostbite warning. And don't forget about Uraraka, the girl who can make things float, including your heart, with her adorably supportive attitude. If you ever wondered what would happen if you mix the Hunger Games with a sports tournament, this is it. Minus the bows and arrows, plus a lot of sweaty teenagers kicking soccer balls with the intensity of a lion hunting its prey. The main character, Yoichi Isagi, is your typical nice guy who's been playing soccer by the book his whole life, until he gets thrown into Blue Lock, a brutal training program designed to create Japan's greatest and most egoistic striker. This isn't your average sports camp. It's more like boot camp run by a mad scientist who decided that what soccer really needs is more cutthroat competition and fewer friends. The coaches, more like drill sergeants. The drills think less, passing practice, and more survival of the fittest. The concept is simple. 300 of Japan's best young forwards are locked in a facility and told to duke it out until only one remains. The prize? Becoming the next soccer superstar. What is the catch, you think? If you lose, you are basically blacklisted from ever playing professionally. No pressure, right? It's like if someone took the phrase "there's no I in team" and threw it out the window while cackling maniacally. Isagi quickly realizes that to survive in Blue Lock, he will need to toss aside his team player mentality and unleash his inner egomaniac. This is easier said than done when you are up against opponents who are all as desperate and driven as you are, and some who look like they've been waiting their whole lives for an excuse to go full-on villain mode. The tension is so thick you could cut it with a knife, or maybe a well-aimed soccer ball to the face. Highq is what happens when you take a high school sports anime, pump it full of adrenaline, and then crank up the intensity until the volleyballs are practically on fire. This show turns a simple game of volleyball into an epic saga of dreams, rivalries, and enough jumps to make you wonder if these kids have secret springs in their shoes. Our main character, Shoyo Hinata, is basically a human firecracker with orange hair that's more energetic than most people's entire personalities. Despite being vertically challenged in a sport where height is everything, Hinata's got enough determination to leap tall buildings in a single bound, or at least spike a volleyball into the stratosphere. It's like if a golden retriever learned how to play volleyball. Boundless energy, pure enthusiasm, and an inability to stay still for more than 5 seconds. The matches in Highq are nothing short of epic. Who knew volleyball could be so intense? The show somehow makes every set, spike, and block feel like it's the climax of an action movie. The animation goes into overdrive during the games, with players flying across the screen, sweat glistening, and the ball moving like it's got its own action director. Every point is a mini drama, every game is a saga. It's like watching the Olympics if the Olympics were made by people who thought the laws of physics were just suggestions. Meet Takemichi Hanagaki, our protagonist, who's basically the anime equivalent of "I peaked in middle school." At 26, his life is going nowhere fast. Dead-end job, crummy apartment, no prospects. But just when he's about to hit rock bottom, he gets pushed onto the train tracks, and instead of becoming a tragic news story, he suddenly sent 12 years back in time to his middle school days. Back in the past, Takemichi realizes he's got a shot to save his middle school girlfriend, Hinata, who in the present day ends up dead because of her connections to the Tokyo Mage gang, a group of delinquents with more drama than a soap opera. But here's the catch. Takemichi has no fighting skills, no master plan, and no idea what he's doing. Imagine trying to survive a gang war when your biggest accomplishment was not failing gym class. Yep, that's Takemichi's life now. Takemichi's strategy for changing the future is mostly crying, getting beat up, and somehow inspiring the gang with his sheer determination not to suck at life. Seriously. This guy spends half the series either getting pummeled or trying to convince everyone that peace and friendship are the way to go, while surrounded by people who think peace is just the calm before the next gang war. But despite all the chaos, the show has a surprising amount of heart. Takemichi's journey is less about being the toughest guy on the block and more about learning what it means to truly stand up for what you believe in, even if that means getting your face rearranged in the process. The friendships, the loyalty, and the sheer will to protect those you care about give the show an emotional depth that hits you right in the feels, usually right after a scene where someone gets kicked through a wall. Mage Burndead, a guy so ripped he could probably crush walnuts with his pinky, The twist? He lives in a world where magic is everything, and if you don't have it, you might as well be a muggle, or worse, dead. But Mage couldn't care less about magic. He's more interested in his next workout and, of course, cream puffs. Yes, cream puffs. This man loves them so much you will think they were the key to the world peace. Instead of wand waving and spell casting, Mage takes a more, hands-on approach. Got a magic problem? Mage solves it by punching it into oblivion. Whether it's a fireball or a giant monster, Mage's answer is always the same. Flex those biceps and hit it until it stops moving. His muscles are so overpowered that he can literally punch magic out of the air. Who needs a magic wand when you get biceps the size of boulders? The humor in Mashal is as thick as Mash neck, with absurd situations that poke fun at every magical school trope you can think of. Mash navigating a broomstick flying class? Let's just say the broom has no say in the matter. Potion class? Mash could probably brew something by squeezing ingredients with his bare hands. Exams? Who needs them when you can intimidate your way to the top of the class with sheer brute strength? Harukas Sakura came to Furin High School for the sole purpose of punching his way to the top. Labeled a troubled child his entire life, he believes his only potential future is to show how powerful he is when it comes to fighting. Upon arriving at Furin High School, however, Haruka finds not only empathy from his fellow classmates but also enthusiasm and kindness from the people in town. Turns out, Furin High School has changed from its battle royale days, thanks to a charismatic powerhouse fighter and leader named Umemiya. While Haruka intends to dethrone the current leader, he is also inexplicably pulled into the whims of a town and school that was the best for him and which is nothing more than for him to be happy. If you have ever wondered what it would be like to see firefighters take on spontaneous human combustion with the power of epic anime battles, then this is the show for you. It's a world where putting out fires is less about hoses and more about kicking flames in the face while looking incredibly cool. The story centers around Shinra Kusakabe, a young pyrokinetic with a literal fire in his belly and feet. Shinra can ignite his feet at will, which gives him the ability to fly, kick with the power of a rocket booster and never need to buy a pair of socks again. His nickname is Devious Footprints, partly because of his powers and partly because of the creepy grin he can't seem to turn off. This guy smiles like he's auditioning for the role of the Joker, even when he's saving lives. Shinra joins Special Fire Force Company 8, a team of quirky, overpowered firefighters whose job is to battle infernos, people who suddenly burst into flames and turn into fire monsters. These aren't your average fire department heroes. They are more like a mix between SWAT team and X-Men, but with more flamethrowers and less subtlety. Each member of Company 8 has their own unique way of handling the heat, whether it's with a flaming sword, steam-powered punches, or straight-up fire magic. Meet Kavka Hibino, a 32-year-old guy who's stuck in the most dead-end job imaginable, cleaning up the guts of kaiju after they've been killed by the defense force. It's like being the janitor in a world where Godzilla's cousins drop by every other day. Kafka once dreamed of joining the defense force himself, but life had other plans. Namely, plans that involved him scrubbing kaiju goo off the streets and wondering where everything went wrong. He gets a power to transform into that monster. Kafka's struggles are as hilarious as they are relatable. Whether it's trying to keep his kaiju identity a secret or dealing with the fact that his best friend Mina is now a badass commander while he's still stuck in the kaiju cleaning business, Kafka's life is one long series of "how do I get here" moments. His kaiju form might be terrifying, but deep down, he's still just a guy trying to make it through the day without getting fired or vaporized. Black Clover is the anime equivalent of that friend who's always shouting about how they are going to be the best at everything, even though they've got the odds stacked against them, and somehow you can't help but root for them. It's a wild ride through a world where everyone's got magic, except for our hero. Asta, who's so loud he probably thinks he can scream himself into being a wizard. And let's start with Asta, the human equivalent of an air horn. The guy's energy level is permanently set to 11 and he's got more determination than common sense. Born without a drop of magic in a world where magic is basically the currency of cool. Asta's goal is to become the Wizard King, the top magical job in the kingdom. It's like deciding you are going to be an Olympic swimmer even though you are afraid of water. But hey, Asta's got muscles for days and he's armed with a big anti-magic sword that's practically a giant middle finger to the laws of the universe. And then there's Yuno, Asta's childhood rival, who's so naturally gifted with magic that he's like the anime equivalent of that kid who gets straight A's without trying. Yuno is so cool, calm and collected that you would almost forget he's in the same series as Asta, who's always one shout away from losing his voice. But despite being opposites, one is a magical prodigy, the other's a magical repellent loudmouth. They've got a bond as strong as their competitive streaks, which adds a nice touch of bromance to the chaos. The show's pacing is about as fast as Asta screaming. Black Clover doesn't mess around with filler. It's all about cramming as much action, magic and character development as possible into every episode. The battles are epic, with spells flying around like confetti at a wizard's birthday party, and the stakes keep getting higher. You will go from rooting for Asta as he slays some random monsters to cheering him on as he takes on world-threatening villains without missing a beat or a shout. Imagine being so strong that defeating world-ending monsters is as easy as swatting a fly. That's Saitama, a guy who's so bored of being unbeatable that the real challenge isn't the battles, but finding a supermarket sale that's still running when he gets there. Saitama is your average, bald, unassuming guy with the most epic case of meh ever recorded. He didn't get his powers from a radioactive spider bite or a secret government experiment. Nope, he got them by doing 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats and 10-kilometer run every day for 3 years straight. Also, he refused to use the air conditioner, which is apparently the true secret to superhuman strength. Forget the gym membership, just ditch the AC and get ready to obliterate monsters with a flick of your wrist. Saitama's so overpowered that every fight ends with, you guessed it, a one punch. That makes life a little dull. He's not in it for the glory, the fame or the fans. Not that he has many, since most people don't even know who he is. Saitama just wants a good fight to break up the monotony of his everyday life. But when you can turn any enemy, no matter how terrifying or dramatic, into a splatter on the pavement with a single punch, finding excitement is harder than it sounds. Chainsaw Man is like if you took all the craziest ideas you could imagine, threw them in a blender, added a chainsaw and then let the blender run on Highq. The result? A show that's as delightfully insane as it is gory. A symphony of blood, chainsaws and some of the most bizarre characters you will ever meet. Let's start with our boy, Denji, the walking disaster zone with a chainsaw for a head. And arms, because why stop at just one chainsaw? Denji's life goals are refreshingly simple. Eat good food, touch some boobs and maybe, just maybe, not die. He's like that friend who always seems to make the worst life choices but somehow is happy. If you give a golden retriever a chainsaw and a devil contract, you spawn Denji. Speaking of devils, enter Pochita, the adorable chainsaw demon dog that's part pet, part murder weapon. Pochita is the kind of creature you would want to cuddle, except it might accidentally saw off your arm in the process. But don't worry, the chainsaw head is Denji's ticket to a better life, or at least a life full of slicing things into confetti. Power is like a cat in a human form, self-centered, chaotic and utterly lovable in her own twisted way. And we can't forget about Aki, the guy who's somehow stuck being the babysitter for this dysfunctional devil-hunting family. Aki's the straight man in this circus of absurdity, wielding a sword with a cursed future and trying to keep the team from blowing up everything in their path. Literally. But deep down, you know Aki is just one existential crisis away from joining Denji and Power in their quest to break every rule in the Devil Hunter handbook. The show's animation is so sharp you might accidentally cut yourself just watching it. Mappa really went all out here, making sure that every chainsaw rev, every splatter of blood and every unholy monstrosity is rendered in glorious, gory detail. It's like a horror movie, action flick, and absurd comedy all rolled into one and then hacked apart with a chainsaw for good measure. Imagine a world where high school kids aren't just worried about exams or who they are crushing on, but are instead trying to avoid getting eaten by curses that look like they walk straight out of your worst nightmare. Welcome to the wild ride that is Jujutsu Kaisen, where the line between life and death is thinner than Gojo Satoru's blindfold. First off, let's talk about the main character, Yuji Itadori. This guy could give Usain Bolt a run for his money and has the appetite for a competitive eater. But instead of using his incredible athleticism to, I don't know, win gold medals, he decides to swallow a rotten finger from a centuries-old demon king. Pro tip, if you are ever given a choice between eating cursed body parts or literally anything else, choose this one, the finger. Gojo Satoru, the teacher who looks like he wandered out of a Highq fashion magazine but can obliterate enemies with just a look, literally. Is basically what would happen if you gave a cat with godlike powers a human body and an insatiable love for trolling people. You think you are the strongest? Gojo's here to laugh in your face, blindfolded, while sipping a latte. The animation is so smooth you could slide a curse down it and watch it breakdance to death. And the fights, let's just say if you ever thought you were cool for throwing a decent punch, Jujutsu Kaisen will humble you. The action scenes are like a beautiful dance, if that dance involved punching demons in the face repeatedly. If you ever thought your sibling was a pain, imagine them turning into a bloodthirsty demon with a taste for human flesh. That's Demon Slayer in a nutshell, a heartwarming story about family, friendship, and hacking off demon heads with the kind of flair that would make a samurai jealous. Our hero, Tanjiro Kamado, is a cinnamon roll wrapped in flannel who smells things like a bloodhound on steroids. After his family gets brutally murdered and his sister Nezuko transforms into a demon, talk about a bad day, Tanjiro sets off on a quest to save her and avenge his family. But don't be fooled by his kind eyes and soft demeanor. This guy could probably smell what you had for breakfast yesterday and then slice you into sashimi before you blink. Speaking of Nezuko, she's the most adorable demon you will ever meet. She's got a bamboo stuck in her mouth, like a teething toddler. But instead of chewing on it, she's biting back the urge to munch on humans. Also, she can shrink to fun-sized proportions and deliver a mean roundhouse kick with legs that extend like an accordion. She's like your kid sister, but with the ability to punt a demon across the forest. Family goes, right? Then there's Zenitsu Agatsume, a guy who spends 90% of his time shrieking in terror like he's stuck in a horror movie he never signed up for. The other 10%? He's an absolute thunder god who slices through demons faster than you can say yellow lighting. It's like watching a scaredy cat turn into Thor every time he falls asleep. Just don't wake him up or he will go back to sobbing like his life depends on it. Which, to be fair, it usually does. And who could forget Inosuke Hashibira, the guy who wears a boar's head because, well, why not? He's the poster child for step first, ask questions never. Inosuke charges into battle shirtless, wielding dual swords that he's purposefully chipped to make them more jagged. Honestly, if this guy asked for directions, you will probably give them just to avoid becoming his next target. But beneath that boar mask is a face so pretty it could launch 1,000 fan clubs, and probably has. The show's animation is so jaw-droppingly beautiful that you will find yourself wondering if you've been transported into an art gallery, if art galleries were filled with demonic carnage and intense sword fightings. The water effects alone make you want to dive into the screen and start surfing on a wave of pure artistic brilliance. Solo leveling is the kind of story that takes the classic zero to hero trope, throws it into a blender with a ton of monsters' blood and then hits the max level button until the blender explodes. Imagine a world where dungeons and monsters randomly pop up and people have to become RPG-style hunters to deal with them. Now imagine that the weakest hunter in the world suddenly gets a cheat code that turns him into a one-man wrecking crew. That's solo leveling in a nutshell. One epic power trip after another, and it's glorious. Meet Sang Jinwoo, the protagonist, who starts off as the kind of hunter whose biggest achievement is not getting eaten by the monster he's supposed to be fighting. He's known as world's weakest hunter, which is basically like being the guy who always finishes last in Mario Kart race while everyone else is lapping you. But then, in a twist that makes every gamer's heart sink, he gets access to a mysterious leveling system that only he can see. It's like he stumbled across the mother of all cheat codes, and now he's ready to go from noob to god tier. Of course, with great power comes great responsibility, or in Jinwoo's case, the responsibility to keep leveling up until he's basically a god. The stakes keep rising, the monsters keep getting bigger, and Jinwoo keeps finding new and creative ways to demolish them. Whether it's taking down an entire dungeon by himself or going toe to toe with ancient beings, Jinwoo is always up for the challenge, and he always comes out on the top. It's like watching a sports game where you already know your favorite team is going to win, but it's still thrilling to see how they do it.